to get to, there we go. So we are here today to discuss commitment. That choice was, of course, inspired for us by Valentine's Day, but I think commitment, of course, very much is very much broader than just romantic relationships. So we're going to watch a video and listen to the song Clairvoyant from the musical Scotland, PA. Is anyone here or on Zoom familiar with either the movie or the musical of Scotland, PA? Just David, you were my only hope. So okay. Okay, good.
That's a good thing.
So we'll tell you everything you need to know. But first, we're going to listen to the song. It's called Clairvoyant, written by Adam Guan. The book for the musical was written by Michael Mitnick. And it's sung by Ryan McCartan and Taylor Iman Jones. So David, if you could share the video with all of us.
I will do that.
Garbage at the push of a button. Hey, I'm Matt from Pila, and I want to introduce you to my friend Lomi. At Pila, we're a team of engineers and
All right. So I understand there were some audio troubles. I hope you could get enough of the lyrics from at least the
Subtitles. Yeah.
So in this song, what are they committing to? Why did I pick this song to talk about commitment? Anybody? Yeah.
Excuse me, Rachel, it would help if you can remove your masks while you're speaking. We're not picking it up well on Zoom.
I'm really not comfortable doing that.
Okay.
Use the hand mic.
Yeah.
Hold it right up to your mask.
All right, is this better?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You'll probably see back.
Oh, it's your mic? Okay. So I was saying, Dan's going to take notes. What commitment are they talking about in this song? And why do you think I chose this song to talk about commitment? I guess we'll start in the room, and then if anyone wants to share online, please raise your hand as well. Kurt.
I think what I got from that is they're committing to their future. They're clairvoyant. They can see the future, and their future is together, and they're committing to themselves, that they're committing to make a future work and have a family and all these other things. So,
Absolutely. That was definitely all in there. Anyone else in the room wanna? All right, we can take one. We have commitment to their love, says Pam, in the chat. Anybody else want to raise their hand and say anything different? Oh, we have one here. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just say that it seemed like they had a vision that they were sharing, and that was their commitment was to that vision, a little bit like what Kurt said.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will tell you that these characters are married. It's also the 1970s, in case you were wondering about the waterbed and the plastic wreath on the door. And the lack of masks, yes. Well, even the musical was 2019, so definitely the before times. But so yes, they are married to each other, and they definitely are recommitting to their marriage in this song. This musical and the movie that it's based on, which I highly recommend, the 2001 Scotland, PA, which is not a musical, but is based on the play Macbeth. And so this is Mr. and Mrs. Macbeth, Pat and Mac, they go by, and it's the beginning of Act 2. So Macduff has shown up. Macduff in this play is a police investigator who has shown up to investigate the murder of Duncan. And according to Adam Guan, I love being a Broadway fan because I just tweeted that I was teaching this and got responses from both the playwright and the songwriter. And so according to Adam Guan, where did you write that? Mac thinks he's invincible while Pat worries about Macduff. He convinces her to see their new life through in this song. So they are committing both to and unfortunately, we didn't even bring the T-shirt. So it's also that they work in a burger place, and they eventually take it over, and it becomes Macbeth's. They invent the drive-through and want to take over a great capitalist empire, and so I lost my track there and all of the things. So they are committing to both their marriage and also a murderous capitalist plot in this song. And so how does that change what you think about what we can learn about commitment from this song? What is, in a broader sense, commitment? What does it mean to commit to something, whether it's a marriage or a murder plot?
Hi, I think it's a deep, abiding connection of the heart, the mind, and the spirit to a cause or a union of sorts, whatever.
Okay, so a connection of the heart and the mind to a cause or something. Certainly one definition.
And I think because you don't know all the steps and all the places that you will be going and having to make those decisions at the time, your commitment is to say, we keep that vision in mind and kind of do what it takes.
I love that. So it's a commitment to a shared vision. And that's why Mac doesn't say, let's go murder a bunch of people. He says he's clairvoyant and that he can see a future with Pat, and she is, he's painting for her this future. Absolutely. I don't see any hands up online, so I'll take one more here.
Yeah, I mean, this is a retelling of Macbeth. I mean, using that as an example, that they are commuting to a future, but we know that that future goes quite awry in the play, and part of that is because what they commit to gets into competition, right? So in the end, his love for her gets superseded by his own dreams of power and things like that, and that how important it is, I guess, when you're thinking of a future, that you're creating a context where all the dreams can still survive. Otherwise, things are going to fall apart. Even though you hope for the best, it doesn't go that way if you're not planning somehow.
Spoken like a man who's just made a new commitment.
There you go. Well, and, just kind of building on what Susan said about not knowing, really what the path is that you're going to follow, you have to, commitment is risk, right? I don't know what the consequences are. I mean, and usually you think of what are the rewards, but now in this context here where we know that this is about Macbeth, you think, well, they don't know what the consequences are either. But they've made this commitment to, I don't know, either to not necessarily ignore all of the possible outcomes or consequences for good or bad, but to accept them at the outset. We're taking this risk, and whatever comes, we are making that commitment to accept it now and to follow through.
Absolutely. I will say they have already killed Duncan at this point, so they're in it. Excuse me. They're in it, but they're not all the way in it. So yeah. Anybody online have anything to add to this conversation?
We don't have any hands up. Oh, wait, Mark Hecht. Mark, go ahead, please. Mark.
Talking about, yeah, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so you're talking about knowledge or knowing, and I think a commitment, it has to do with belief. So it might not be knowledge, but it's strong belief that one's willing to take action on and to stick to that belief. So it's interesting that you're talking about Macbeth because they had a plan and they believed in it, but it seems as if they start to lose their belief because maybe there was something fundamentally flawed in that. So their belief and the ability to commit to it is becoming shaky because it's not a big belief. Their original belief was flawed. That's all.
Thank you. Gwen Levine, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
This is a little different than the couple singing, but as we're talking about this, I'm thinking that part of commitment is determination to see something through. I started a mentoring program in Patterson at one time, and it hit some bumps along the way, and I kept working it through and through and through because I was committed to making it last forever. So something about determination.
Yeah, well, can I ask you what kept you going when you hit those things? So you had made a commitment and you were determined to see it through. What were the things, like, what in your mind kept you going through those rough times?
It gave my life meaning. It was purposeful. I later realized that we were helping kids feel seen and acknowledged, and that I grew up not feeling seen and acknowledged. So it was something very personal. And it was very rewarding. Not only the kids and what we were doing for them, but the relationship between the other volunteer teachers, because we had a lot of camaraderie among ourselves.
Great. So if I can try to sort of extrapolate that to a more general definition of commitment, you saw something that was needed, and you knew what it was like to not have it, and you wanted to make sure that others were able to have that thing. And so even when there were obstacles, you kept going. Is that fair?
Yes, that others would have that, and also that I would have that sense of meaning in what my activities were all about.
Sure. Okay. All right. Did anyone else want to share, either in the room or online?
There's no hands raised online.
All right. So what does it mean to make, no, we kind of talked about that. Why is commitment something that's part of ethics? Why is it an ethic to make and keep commitments? Why do we think that's important? If we do, I do. But.
So, here I am.
Oh, Mark Hecht has his hand up for that. Mark, please
So
unmute yourself and go ahead.
So I think that,
Oh, excuse me, we do have one hand up on Zoom, Mark Hecht. Go ahead, Mark.
So
Mark?
the ethics behind it is, if you make the idea of the belief, the strong belief, if it's the belief in something that's right or wrong, then the necessity to make a commitment to it is following through with that, and it would be unethical not to do what you believe is right or wrong. So if you really have a strong belief that something's the right thing to do, then to be consistent with that belief, you would have to do it. Otherwise, it would be unethical. It's to just have a sense of what was right and not to do it would be unethical. Also, I think part of it is to formulate what the belief is. So people might have beliefs about what's right or wrong. They might not question them that much. If they really believe it and they stick to their belief because they think it's right, there's some integrity there, but might be some ignorance because they haven't really reflected or tested their belief. But once they have done that, then the next step to be ethical would be to follow through with it, even if it was something that was sometimes not pleasurable because there were other sacrifices that would have to be made. If you really believe that and that is all important, then you'd have to.
All right, we're having some trouble hearing you, Mark, but it sounds like you're saying that it's important, when you believe in something, it's important to commit to it. Is that a fair summing up?
Yeah, I'm saying it's, if you, from a point of view of ethics, it's trying to formulate the correct approach, or what correct belief, to try to make the belief more knowledgeable, but to also follow through. If you have a belief that's right, but you don't follow through, then it wouldn't be an ethical act. It's following through in the belief that makes it ethical too, not just having the belief, but be willing to put things on the line for it. And it's also important from the ethical point of view to test your beliefs. Because if you just have a belief that it hasn't been, you haven't, I think people have an ethical and a moral obligation to reflect upon what's right and wrong. But once you do that with and with integrity, then you should try to make that the guide for your action, and you should follow that. If not, then it's not completely ethical. You have to follow.
Okay, so
And
commitment is the thing that turns beliefs into integrity.
Well, the thing, well, you could actually say a person could have a belief that it's important to reflect upon. Then I guess it becomes circular. I mean, some people would say it's in their belief that to act morally, they might have the belief that you have to reflect upon what you believe in and the reasons for it, and come to some kind of an understanding of right and wrong. So that might be a belief in and of itself. So I guess you could have some kind of circularity or self-recursive problem. But assuming that you could get out of that and you have an intuition, a deep intuition, that it's important to reflect what's right and wrong. And then once you come up with a conclusion that's compelling, that you act according to it. And that would be the.
Yeah, excuse me, Mark. I just want to add, we have a couple comments in the chat window from Pam. We're making a commitment to lead ethical lives and to always do what is right. And from Janet Glass, a commitment is a promise. It's not ethical to break a promise. We also have 3 hands up. We'll go with Anu Podki first. Anu, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have a little bit different view there. First of all, I think that the ethic is more related into what are you committing to. So that's where it's more a criteria of finding out if it is ethical or not. Also, when it comes to commitment, I am rather of the opinion that you should be evaluating what your belief is. And if you think that something is wrong there, then you should be also committed to break that promise or break that commitment, because it might happen that in your different phases in your life, you find something that you want to commit to, and then you reevaluate the things. You have more information, more data, more experiences, and then you should be. I'm not saying that first thing you find something wrong, you want to just go ahead and break the promise, but you should reflect on it, and you should have that flexibility in your thinking that if I see something is not really going as per I see, then I should be in a position to not follow it through or protest or say that whatever is wrong there, and at least not follow what is wrong in that business.
Okay, thank you, Anu. Katie,
Okay, David, we have some people in the room as well. And I'd just like to refocus on that, yes, of course, there are reasons to break commitments that can be ethical, but I want to focus on why commitment itself is something that's important. And not necessarily about what you're committing to. In that case, let's assume what you're committing to is ethical. Why is commitment itself an important ethic?
Because, so I think that commitment allows you to be grounded so that when you're out and about and making decisions and you find yourself kind of off on an island somewhere, away from whatever your vision was, that commitment can bring you back and refocus.
We have one more in the room, and then we'll go back online.
Hi, I think commitment also reflects our values, and it's a way of honoring ourselves, our true selves, and others. Also, some things that were said about being seen and heard, visibility, transparency, and in that, when you are committed to something, your true self is involved, not the self that we show to the world, but the self that is aligned with our values.
All right, David, do you want to take 2 online comments?
Yes, thanks. Katie, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead, Katie. Yeah.
Yeah, commitment can be shown through deeds. actions you put on the ground, such as, for example, in Africa, like equality of chance for education for girls and boys. You know, give the opportunities to all to go to school, you know, and also, you know, if you believe on certain values, so you can show those values through actions. So you put those actions into life.
So commitment's a way to show our values through actions.
Yeah, through actions, through deeds, the value you believe on, such as education for all.
Sure. So yeah, commitment is the thing that helps our values actually, you know, if we're about deed before creed, then, you know, you can say you believe in whatever, but if you're not committed to it in the real world, it doesn't have any meaning.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, David, do you want to pick one more?
Sure, Gwen Levine, go ahead, please.
Just a quick one. I think when you're committed to something, people know they can rely on you. You won't let them down. That's it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to take one in the room now. Oh, Eric.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you. So I guess I have kind of a utilitarian ethic, which is to say that I think who you are is what you do in many ways. And what you do is a reflection of what you're committed to. And so it's important. I mean, that's really ultimately, I don't think we exist in many ways. I mean, obviously we have an idea of who we are, but ultimately it comes out in our actions. And that's going to be a measure of the commitments that we take.
I think an important thing that we forget to understand about commitment is that commitment is not only for yourself, how you show yourself that you're living your ethical ideals, but commitment is inspiring to others as well. As you show your commitment, others see that, and they get committed also, and they get inspired by that as well. I can name Paula Rogovan here in Teaneck as probably one of the greatest activists, and I've seen her relating to climate change, and I see her absolute commitment to it, and it makes me want to be active also in that. My wife, Lisa, is committed to democratic actions, and I see that, and I get committed also. So commitment can't be underestimated as far as inspiring others.
All right.
We have two hands. Do we have time for a couple more from Zoom?
I actually want to move on to the next idea.
Okay.
As humans, we've touched on a little, but why do we make commitments? What does that give us or give others, you know, as social animals? Why is commitment a thing that humans all over the world do? All right, we have one in the room.
Because commitment binds us together as a community, and we all seek social engagement with other human beings to discover what they're interested in and what they're committed to. So commitment, again, is back to my point of inspiration, it's a way of binding us together as a community. Like, we're all here at Ethical Culture with a certain set of values and ideals, and it binds us together, and we need that sense of community.
All right. Do we have anyone online who wants to?
Beth or Perry Stein, I'm not sure if your hand is up from the last one or if you want to make a comment now.
Sure, actually, maybe a little bit of both. I was thinking that, you know, when speaking of commitment, commitment people generally think of as follow through. That I'm going to pick X, Y, or Z thing that I want to accomplish for others, myself, a better world, and that I'm going to just keep on marching through and make it happen. But part of commitment is also, in my mind, being open to change, because you could remain committed to the greater idea of what you're trying to accomplish, but oftentimes you find that, well, the path that you're taking is not exactly the best way to get to from point A to point B. And part of, in my mind, of commitment in success of what you're doing is to not just blindly say, well, this isn't going well, but I'm committed to making it happen. So I'm going to just keep doing the same thing until I persevere. And there is part of that. I mean, like when we did Ethical Brew, it wasn't always fun. Although we had a lot of fun. It was mostly fun, but there were times it wasn't fun. And we just persevered through and kept going. But, you know, you have to be willing to step back and assess what you're doing and listen to others and try to find a better route. And I think that in a lot of cases, with the best of intention, that people are not successful in their commitments for that reason, that you have to be flexible. That's all.
Yeah, I would venture to guess that while some of the administrative tasks involved in planning or cleaning up may not have been the most fun, that your commitment to making a fun time for others kept you going. If I might hazard a guess. All right. I hope we got enough of the video to answer this question. So going back to the video we started with. So we have Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. She is now wavering from this plan that came from her, right? She's the one that says at the beginning, you are better than this. You can rise up and take over the world with meat and French fries. And now she's afraid, she's concerned, she's wavering. And Mac wants to recommit her both to their marriage and to this plan that she started this path. What strategies does Mac use and why do they work? You know, he doesn't come in and say, well, you started it. What do you mean you're nervous now? That's not the approach he takes. So what is the approach that he takes in the song? We have one in the room.
I mean, he does remind her of a brighter future if they commit to the plan. He starts also talking about the fact that they could have children, that there'd be a tyke running through the room, and that this will lead to a grander vision. So he's building up in her mind, yeah, let's fulfill this because it's a good idea.
Anyone agree or disagree with that assessment? One more in the room.
Also that they're going to do it together so that there's, you know, strength in numbers, kind of.
Right, now remember, he knows her very well. They've been married for years at this point. They grew up together. It's a small town. They got married right out of high school. He knows what she wants. He reminds her of the future that she has always wanted and that this is a way to get it. And their shared vision of the future is what is going to help them through this difficult time. Right, so keeping that in mind and all the things we've said about commitment today, when we make big commitments, because of course we can commit to having lunch next Tuesday, right? That's also a commitment. And it also is a shared vision of the future, right? If Kurt and I make plans to have lunch together, we both are imagining that we'll have a pleasant lunch and we'll both show up at the appointed place and we'll have a pleasant lunch. He'll probably be less concerned if I cancel on him than, you know, Dan would be if I canceled on my commitment to him, because it's a smaller commitment. but we have big and small commitments. So when we think about a big commitment, like a career or a marriage or taking on a position of responsibility somewhere, how does commitment help us make ethical decisions when the unexpected happens? I think we touched on it a little bit. But, you know, we know, for example, in a marriage, we have a concrete promise, a monogamous relationship, that we won't have relationships with other people. But there are a lot of other questions that may come up that are less concrete. Is it okay for me to go out every night with friends? Is it okay for me to move to another city? Is it okay? Things that come up. So how does this commitment to this shared vision of the future help us know what we should do when we're perhaps by ourselves on that island we were talking about earlier?
We have one hand up in Zoom land.
All right.
Mark Hecht, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Well, commitment, I think we need to really understand commitment as how it relates to other virtues, because the thing about commitment is, one of the things that makes it virtuous is it tests our other virtues in some sense. They're all related ultimately, but in other words, in order to maintain a commitment, you might have to have courage, you might have to have patience, and all these other important virtues. So without commitment, you could still have some instances when you were courageous or when you were patient, even without being committed to something. But certainly commitment helps to bring out those, because what it does is it aligns us with a particular value or something, and then when that value is tested, we have to bring out those other virtues. So how does it help us make decisions? Well, it keeps us focused, and gives us some structure to our decision making process, and gives us some overarching purpose in our decisions. But ultimately, the commitment is, I think, one among other virtues, and I don't know, so it's good I think, to see it that way, and that there are other virtues that are necessary in order to affect the commitment, and being able to keep a commitment, and even the desire to make a commitment shows some virtue, because it shows some awareness that commitment might be something that's valuable, and then the ability to keep it is another one, because it tests those other aspects of our personality, of whether we have patience, courage, what have you, and you have to make sacrifice.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. So what I heard is that what Dan wrote down, commitment tests our other virtues. One's necessary to keeping the commitment. So it helps us understand what is important. Yeah. Anyone have anything to add to that? Yeah, we have one in the room.
Hi, I would add hope. If you keep the hope and optimism and you hit rough patches and challenges, you can transcend those. And also with support. Support's important in our lives. Again, connection. Sometimes other people that have been through experiences and they have wisdom, they can help us apply that wisdom that we may not ordinarily have on our own. So reaching out, making connection with others that can support us.
Yeah, support is very important. I've heard, I was going to say it's a Jewish value, but I've heard it at other weddings too, where they invite the whole congregation to say that you are, by being here, are committing to help support this marriage and help it continue, and help the two people committing to stick to their commitment when it becomes difficult. Another one in the room.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll just speak personally. It really helps me deal with disappointment. Because if I've committed to something and I don't get the outcome that I had hoped for at that original commitment, I can at least say, all right, well, I knew this was a possibility, this disappointment. And, I can accept it better because I can feel like at least I walked in integrity. I walked in what was consistent with my values. And so, I become more involved in the process itself and less to any specific outcome. And I think there's real value in that as well.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
We have a comment in the chat window from Janet. Commitment is our North Star, especially if we have declared our commitment in public. It reminds us of our values when circumstances change.
Yes, and that's I would just think in light of the the pandemic, how many people had made commitments of one kind or another that drastically changed, whether it was living in a room with your spouse for a year and a half, never leaving, or, you know I had a big international event planned that completely changed to an online event. You know, all different kinds of commitments we had. We thought we knew what we were committing to, but the world changed. And what did our commitments mean in light of that change? Which ones did we still have to keep? Which ones were no longer relevant? We all have really been examining all of those things, I think, over the last 2 years. Anyone else? Is there another hand online?
No. Oh, yes, sorry, Patty Richards, sorry. Patty Richards, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to add a comment from a bit of a different perspective. I have several friends and family members who, you know, because of mental health issues, are challenged at times with keeping commitments and have failed at commitments that were important to them, like jobs and showing up for other people. So I find that there's importance around keeping the context of a commitment in mind and its importance, and then, you know, being compassionate where it's needed for other people who, you know, may not make it in a way, you know, and then they suffer from a lot of guilt from that.
That's a good question, actually, that I didn't have on my plan. But like, what should we do when we find we cannot fulfill a commitment, or that people have talked about commitments no longer being helpful to us, or if we feel it's no longer ethical in a situation in which we cannot keep a commitment? What is the ethical thing to do? I have one hand in the room.
So in that case, I think you have an obligation to speak your truth, because, you know, things do change, and to hide it away doesn't do anyone any good. Being honest with what your truth is now that it's morphed into something else is important, I think, to state it.
Sure. Any other thoughts on what to do if you cannot find yourself unable to keep a commitment? One more in the room.
I think Patty actually talking about compassion is very important. So remaining honest to what your truth is, but feeling compassion for the, you know, whatever idea it was that you can't commit to.
Sure, and as Patty says, that compassion should be on both sides, right? We should be compassionate to those who come to us and tell us they can't keep a commitment for some good reason. Yeah, absolutely. Any other thoughts? All right. Yeah, we have another one in the room from Kirk.
You know, I don't believe in externalized values. I don't think, you know, justice and things like that exist out there in the universe. I think it's something we build, right? And so something like commitment exists between two people. And it's this ground that we create between us and that other person, right? So it's not, oh, here's what commitments are and I have failed to meet that. It's what happens in a relationship. And I think the biggest thing, and having lived with people with mental illness as well, is learning how you just have to keep working on that relationship. And so even if you break commitments or something, that the people can understand you and know you, that you're there for them in the long term, like Patty is talking about. Because otherwise, we don't want to just create standards about what people are supposed to do based on some external rule, but the quality of our relationships and how we do that. And so commitment is something we build with another person, but it's not just, oh, I'm going to do what I said I do. It's all the other 1,000 things that you've done to that person. that shows that you're there for them and you're going to be there, and how important that is.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I love this song so much, because it shows us how well Mac knows Pat, and that he wants to, as gruesome as the plan is, what he wants to commit to is this beautiful vision that they have always had together. And he wants to give that to his wife, and that is part of it. We have, I see a couple hands online, David.
Yeah, before that, let me just mention, Athena writes that you have to feel compassion for yourself when you can't, I guess you can't keep committing to others. I think that's what she means. And Pam mentions that she had to commit to her own personal safety and good health so she would not endanger her sister who has immune issues. And we do have a couple hands up. Carol, I don't know your last name. I'm not sure which Carol you are. We have a couple.
I'm Carol Evans. Hi,
Okay,
David.
thank you. Hi.
Hi. I think commitment defines your character to a large extent, because if I mean, obviously we do have to always, we have to often break commitments if according to things that change. But if you constantly commit and don't keep your commitments, I think that in my case personally, it's a reason for evaluating or reevaluating a friendship, because it's just a constant disappointment. So I just
Oh, I think we lost her in mid-sentence. Okay, maybe she'll come back in. Mark Hecht, please unmute yourself and go ahead. Mark, okay, well, I think I'm not sure if Mark's having trouble coming in. His hand was up. Why don't you take it back, Rachel? Go ahead.